else does that weird stuff as well. So she'd had about 4 or 5 grapes. Some have the same rationale that I have whenever I go low and people offer me sweet stuff. It's like, no, I can't eat that. I have diabetes, even though I really need that right now. So the girls came back with a cup of tea, and we hadn't said to the lady that we had. So she was able to drink away at the tea because she hadn't realized there was sugar in it. And I think, like me, but I can't taste that. Whenever my glucose gets down below 2, I actually can't taste anything. So she hadn't realized that there was sugar in the tea, and she was just sipping away at it. And you could just see the color starting to come back into her face. She went from that very, very pale, deathly white color to a more normal skin color. And as soon as I started to see the pink coming back into her lips and coming back into her cheeks, I said, now, would you mind doing a wee blood glucose test for me just to see if what we've given you is starting to work? And she checked, and her blood glucose at that stage was about 6.4 or 6.5. So the grapes had worked really quickly. The sugary tea had worked really quickly. And she said, no, I'm not going to ask you too many difficult questions, because it does take up to 45 minutes before your brain catches up with your sugar level. So we just let her sit and work on through the wee cup of tea, and we gave her some biscuits as well, just in case she was to drop again very suddenly, because that can happen as well. Once you treat a hypo, it doesn't mean that it's fixed. And quite often you'll have a second hypo after it if you've gone that low first time around, because your body's trying to replenish the energy stores that you've used, the glucose stores that you've used. So she came round, and she just looked so embarrassed. After she had seen the endocrine team and the dietitian, she was actually sent up onto the antenatal ward because they're concerned that she was having too many hypos. So really exciting news is she's going to have her baby on Monday, and I'm really hoping to be working someday this week so that I can get to meet her and her baby up on the ward after this is all over. But I saw her today, and yeah, she hasn't been having the same issues, low blood glucose levels, while she's been in the hospital, which has been amazing. But she's not having to worry about her other children. She's not having to try and work out, cooking food, because all of those things are done for her in the hospital. So she's actually able to enjoy the last couple of days of her pregnancy. For me, myself, yeah, I've hypoed a number of times in work. When I was working in delivery suite, girls used to joke about one of the rooms there. They would have kept it a number of times. I regained consciousness in a particular room in the induction bay where women go if they're having their pregnancy or their labour started for them. One of the doctors that used to work with us, her husband had type 2 diabetes, so she was quite good about picking up when hypos were happening. And I remember regaining consciousness beside her as she was sitting on the chair at the edge of the bed that I was lying up on. Why am I on the bed? And she says, oh, your blood glucose dropped again and you collapsed. But it's okay. The woman you were with is grand. She didn't mind, and we just brought you out of the room and brought you around here. I said, okay, not embarrassed at all. And she said, but it's fine. I've got you a cup of really hot tea. We've given you some glucagon. I've got you a Kit Kat. So if you want to just eat away at the chocolate and drink the tea, and then we'll talk. And she would just sit beside me while I sobbed and cried and felt that I let the entire world down because I'd had a hypo in work. So yeah, the staff generally would be very clued in now, because they know that whenever I'm getting very, very sassy, as I said, or very pale, they'll go, okay, let's get this girl fed now. Let's get her some apple juice. And they know where I keep my hypo supplies. So they go and they find them for me, and they'll just appear and go, think you might need this? And Sassy me goes, I'm fine. Don't you tell me what I need. And they go, no. And then I do exactly what that woman did. I hoke through a bag of sweets, or I hoke through my hypo treats, and they go, just have what's in there. I'm going, no, but I don't really like those. I only put those in today because that's all I had. And I'm going, for goodness sake, would you just eat them? So yeah, it was like that woman with the grape where, the grapes had to be a particular size or a particular shade of green or in the right place in the box. So yeah, it's the stuff that you learn from your diet buddies as well, that this is okay. This is actually very rational behavior whenever your blood glucose is very low, and to everybody else in the world it looks like you're a complete lunatic and you're mad and you've lost all sense of reasoning. But you know exactly what it's like to be there, because I know you've got favorite hypo treats too, and that you've got wee things that you do whenever you're hypo. So yeah, that's how we roll.
Ends of my hypo treat. Do they even ask you for them at times? I mean they laugh in the most when they see me. Please, can we have some? Please, can we have some? No, make it only for emergency. Yeah, so those things happen.
Yeah, because I only have the good hypo sweets. You see, I don't have rubbish ones. I always have good ones. And people always want the good sweets. It's like, no, that's mine. That's for a medical emergency.
Considering that diabetes is a complex chronic illness that requires this reduction strategies beyond the glycemic control I don't know what you could share with us. I mean, for people dealing with diabetes and hypoglycemia, how they can manage it when they feel hypo signs, they try to ignore them, just want to finish whatever they're doing. Maybe they're going to say, okay, in the next 30 minutes. So what can people do to help manage their hypoglycemia at work?
I think you need to make your co-workers aware of the fact that you have diabetes. And I know that that can be painfully embarrassing. A lot of us have internalized shame and stigma about having diabetes because it's not an attractive or sexy disease to have. It's not something that is seen as a great and glorious thing. It's seen as a judgment of something that you have done that is the reason for you having diabetes. And I mean, for all of us who live with any type of diabetes, it's something in our genetic makeup, regardless of the type of diabetes. Something in our genes has determined that we will be the person who has diabetes, regardless of what we eat, regardless of how much exercise we take, regardless of what we drink, regardless of our lifestyle choices. So it can be very difficult to go and say to your colleagues, your co-workers, your university friends, your school friends that you have type 1 diabetes, but I think you need to make time for that conversation with them. And you need to be aware that they're probably going to make some cruel comments, cruel jokes, judgmental jokes about the fact of the condition that you actually live with. But if you can battle on through that and be aware that they're going to say that, it's a really good point for the education of other people as well. Because at the end of the day, when you have high blood glucose, nobody else can manage that for you. You have to manage that. But when you have hypoglycemia and low blood glucose episodes, you really rely on other people around you to be able to help you. Know if you're having sweets that it's not because you actually want to eat those sweets. It's because you don't want to pass out. You don't want to end up in a hospital with very low blood glucose. You don't want to end up dead behind the wheel of your car. You don't want to walk out in front of a bus. You want to have more life to live. And if your colleagues know that if you're eating sweets, that it's probably because your blood glucose is low, more often than not, they will make some adjustments, some amendments to their treatment of you at that time, generally for the better, rarely for the worse. And if you are confused and not making sense, or you get into that pattern of repetitive behaviors, and you've told them that what your hypo sign for them is going to be, they should know where your hypo treatments are, whether it's juice, whether it's sweets, whatever you treat your hypos with. But if you don't tell anybody, they're never going to be able to help. If you make them aware of insulin, they might go and get your insulin for you, and that's the last thing you need, obviously, at that point in time. I never take things like glucagon with me whenever I'm going out anywhere, in case people would get confused between glucagon and insulin and what they do. So it is better to have the box of hypo treats, as you say. Yeah, don't eat my hypo treat, or Jelly Babies Save Lives is my other box. But even those wee messages are really good to be able to show people, because it then makes them aware of the fact you do have diabetes, that you will need those things at times to keep you safe and to keep other people around you safe as well, particularly if you're going to be driving, particularly if you're doing something that you're in a position of leadership with other people as well. So yeah, being honest can be really difficult, and you can get knocked back by other people's comments or by other people's attitude. I think the best thing you can do is just keep chipping away at those stigmas, keep chipping away at those stereotypes, because you don't live in none of us live in a constant state of hypo. Hypos are things that happen, but it's not something that's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks in the year until we die. There's something that's maybe going to happen where other people need to be involved a few times a month, a few times a year, a few times a week, a few times a day in some instances. So we just expect that, or I would just hope that my colleagues would continue to have that level of awareness, that they would know me well enough when I'm not hypo to know me when I am hypo. And yeah, for the most part, even the girls that I was saying about in the clinic, there are times whenever they'll say to me, "Are you okay? Do you need to go and get something to eat or drink?" And again, most of the time they're right. They pick up on those things that I'm not aware of, because I can't see me. I can't see what I look like to them. I can't see what I'm doing. And whenever I do a blood glucose check, 9 times out of 10, they're right. Sometimes I'm just being maybe a bit more challenging that day because I'm tired, or I've had not such a good morning working in the hospital. Yeah, it's good to have colleagues who are on your side, who know the things to look out for, because they know whenever you're normal. They know when you're actually you, but they also very quickly pick up on when you're not quite yourself. And because they're aware that I have type 1 diabetes and that's how hypos affect me, they're very supportive. I think it has been a learning curve for them seeing me whenever I'm hypo, but it does mean now that they're also much more clued in whenever people who are coming in and out of the hospital are having hypos as well. We have a couple of staff members who joined in the last 3 or 4 years who also have type 1 diabetes. The girls that I've worked with have realized whenever those newer colleagues of ours are having hypos, because they recognize the behaviors from what they've seen me, like whenever I'm particularly low or whenever I'm going from normal glucose to low blood glucose. And sometimes it's a very slow slide from normal into low, sometimes a very fast slide. But again, it means that they have the confidence to be able to say, are you feeling okay? Do you need something to eat? Do you want to go and get a wee drink? Go you first lunch instead of going for second lunch. So it's benefited other people as well. So it's benefited women in the clinic, it's benefited patients on the ward, benefited other staff members. So yeah, it was never an easy conversation to have with other folk initially whenever I started in the hospital, but it has paid off in the long run.
Thank you so much. Or maybe last question would be, maybe it's not a question, what would be your last to the audience, to the listener?
So I think the most important thing is, don't think that you're the only person that ever has embarrassing hypos. Don't think that you're the only person in the world who has less than perfect blood glucose. Don't think that you're the only person who struggles to get blood glucose management where you want it to be. And don't ever think that you're alone. You don't have to be alone with the condition that we have. There are an awful lot of us out there on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. There's a number of folk who are on Telegram, I believe now, and there's folk on WhatsApp, and there are so many other organizations that you can hook up with, that you can link up with. As you know, we came into contact with each other, Tino, through the work of the DDoc Voices. Yeah. So if you have access to social media, hashtag DDoc or DDoc Voices, either one of those generally work, and you'll suddenly just start to discover people. Hashtag DOC, and you've come along and joined us in NIDoc with our Korean friends as well, and other weird, not quite Scottish, not quite Irish accents, not always the easiest to follow. And there's also GBDoc, and there's OzDoc. Yeah, there's lots of different diabetes online communities. So even putting into any of your social media programs at all, DOC, it'll bring up a wealth of organizations of people living with type 1, type 2, LADA, MODI, type 3 diabetes, type 3C diabetes, gestational diabetes. Yeah, there's a lot more of us out there than you ever think, and you don't ever have to be alone with the condition. So the most important thing, I think, for anyone is to get out, start finding your tribe the way that we found our tribes, and start finding your peer support network, because you learn so much from each other. You become increasingly more empowered by other people's stories, by other people's experiences. And quite often, things that you struggle with are the things that everybody else with this condition is struggling with as well. And everybody on social media quite often shows their better diabetes moments or their most awful diabetes moments. You don't tend to see the normal day-to-day stuff where, yeah, you got up that day, blood glucose was okay enough for me. It was an okay day. You will generally see the stuff where everybody's celebrating very high highs or very low lows and very, very unreal moments. But every so often, you just get a proper moment in somebody's diabetes life. And that's generally what I try to do with my stuff. As you saw there during the week, one of my wee type 1 friends from the antenatal clinic brought me in a wee bag of hypo treats to keep in my pocket, because every time she sees me in the clinic, I'm generally just going into hypo at that point in time. So it's lovely because, again, I met her through social media and she's become a real life friend. So one day I will get to come and visit you, Tino, or you'll come and visit me and Alistair and the gang over here in Northern Ireland. And yeah, it'll be good. It'll just be lovely to see and meet up, because again, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. It doesn't matter how you treat your diabetes. It doesn't matter what resources you have, what resources you don't have. The community of people living with diabetes is one of the most valuable things that you can have, unless, after insulin, obviously, because we all need our insulin.
Thank you so much, John. Okay, so I'll just have to stop the recording. But thank you so much. And we say one diabetes, one symbol.
This is the Diabetic Mogul Podcast. Checking out. A huge thanks to our guest for the plausible and extraordinary information and great tips from a great lived diabetes perspective. And to you, our listeners, our hope is you learn something. And we strongly recommend you that you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, to continue learning with us. And until next time, thank you all for listening.